What's going on, everybody? I'm Max Ralph,
Seth Engle.
back with another 1-0 podcast. Interesting developments this week. We already had a midweek pod last week. If you didn't see it, go check it out. We talked big time recruiting stuff for Penn State. But it's the summer, so guess what? We're talking more recruiting. And for the second year in a row, things are just going really well for Penn State. This week, another big Alabama commitment. Dakari Nelson, a huge safety from Selma, Alabama. Seth, I guess just what pops off the page right away for you with him and his recruitment and everything.
Well, the first thing that stands out about DaKaari Nelson, I think to anyone would be his size. At 6'3", 200 pounds. He's huge. And he's big for a football player. Especially a safety. He's a guy who could potentially move down and play linebacker at some point. It's kind of hard to judge his tape just because of how big he is, which was maybe the one thing that, the one negative in his game, because he really is this powerful safety, similar to Jaquan Brisker, really hard hitting, has a nose for the ball, has a nose to just kind of destroy people in the secondary. Sorry. He seems like someone that has a lot of potential. It's really just a matter of facing more competition, just based on the fact that a lot of his highlights were against, competition that seemed a little iffy, and he just seemed bigger than everyone else.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the same things. He's an elite prospect. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's 6'3", almost 200 pounds, and he's playing safety, and he moves well for that size. I mean, what I would say is a lot of the things that he's got on his highlight reel seemed like balls that were just kind of poorly thrown, that he ended up being in the right place at the right time. But he moves really well, and he does have elite ball skills to make those plays. He also plays a little bit of receiver, a little bit of kick return. He's got elite ball skills and that size too. What I kind of see in Dakari Nelson is this new role that's coming with Manny Diaz's defense. I think they call it the striker. It's what John Sutherland's doing this year. It's kind of a combination between a safety and an outside linebacker. It's becoming a little more popular in football, period. But Manny Diaz is someone who's really leaned full into that. And granted, who knows how long Manny Diaz is going to be in town. I personally don't think it will be for very long, but I could see him transitioning into that striker role where he plays a little bit of both. But like you said, you did mention Jaquan Brisker, and Brisker played everywhere during his time here. He played up on the line of scrimmage, played up in the box. He was a ball hawk, and that's pretty big shoes to be comparing Nelson to already. But the size and the traits are there. I would agree.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, when you compare him to Jaquan Brisker was massive at safety. Yeah. This guy's bigger than Jaquan Brisker.
Exactly.
So that opens up this whole other door of what you're able to do with him on the defense. And you could even put him down, a more percentage of plays than Jaquan Brisker played at Penn State. So yeah, I think the sky's really the limit for this guy.
Yeah. No, a super versatile prospect that a big 4-star out of Alabama, and again, 2 prospects in 1 week out of Alabama. That's crazy. But to kind of go off of how Penn State's doing so well in recruiting, it's kind of changed the plans for it seems one kid. Musa Kane, a defensive back. Penn State's been on his radar, 3-star for a while, and for a long time it seemed like Penn State was the heavy favorite for this kid. But now that Penn State's had so much success with Nelson and others in the defensive back room, we're looking at names like Conrad Hussey, potentially King Mack. Because Penn State has had a lot of success with those names, it seems like things are going more toward Duke for Musa Kane.
Yeah, this has been a guy, like you said, that's been on Penn State's radar for a while. Kind of seemed like a lock at one point. I don't know if Penn State really knew that this whole Alabama thing was going to kick off. I don't think that that Dakari Nelson was someone that was super high on the boards 1 or 2 months ago. This is something that transpired very quickly. With the TJ Parker commitment, then you opened up this whole window with Alabama and these other states that are starting to say, okay, well, Penn State isn't just Pennsylvania. They recruit
Yeah.
really well there, but they're also going to have guys from out of state.
Yeah.
Why don't we just go there? So I
Mhm.
think now what you're seeing with Musa Kane is Penn State's backed off a little bit. They say, you know what, we're kind of getting loaded in the secondary right now,
Yeah.
expecting that King Mack, who's, you know, a better prospect than Musa Kane is, just straight up. If they're expecting King Mack to come on the campus too, and he's a
Mhm.
Florida guy, um, you know, they can afford to let Musa Kane walk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Mac's actually an interesting one because he's teammates with Conrad Hussey, who's already committed. But
Right.
there's been some, Hussey's gotten some other offers since he's been committed. Georgia's one of them. Georgia's offering a lot of Penn State commitments. It's interesting. I mean, obviously Josh Miller flipped, but Yazid Haynes got a Georgia offer too, I think. But to talk about Hussey, he got a Miami offer too, I think. So it's interesting, and it seems like that's a commitment that Penn State's going to have to kind of hold on to pretty tightly if they want to hold on to him. But yeah, him and King Mack, and like we said, Dakari Nelson, it's just kind of shifted what the outlook of this recruiting class is. We thought Musa Kane was a lock for a long time, and now it kind of seems like you said that they've moved on from him.
Yeah.
So now, yeah. So, but regardless, I mean, this class, like another 4-star, and there's more coming next month. We can't even forget about the Tamir Robinsons, the Tony Rojas. Like, there's a lot coming still, and we're not even into July yet. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah.
Right.
So, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to transition here a little bit. Talking about recruiting visits, I think there are a lot of questions right now regarding NIL and how that might play into recruiting visits, and
Yeah.
how Penn State might be positioning itself in
Mhm.
certain aspects with NIL and recruiting. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, an article that we just released that I wrote. It was detailing Success with Honor. I
Yeah.
talked to the CEO of Success with Honor, Mark Toniati, really about what the collective is as a whole. And I
Yeah.
think it's just interesting right now as we're seeing Penn State get all these guys. You know, it's easy for someone to say, oh, well, they're just throwing money at them. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Which isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But
Sure.
what we do know is that, you know, Success with Honor is setting up Penn State to be, you know, a perennial powerhouse in terms of NIL for the next few years.
Yeah. For a while, it seemed like there were other schools who were way ahead of Penn State. You know, you talk about the Ohio States, even Michigan State. I think early in this summer, late in the spring, Michigan State was getting a lot of high profile guys on campus and getting some high profile commitments too. And I think a lot of the narrative there was that they had a really good NIL program in place. And I think we're starting to see Success with Honor take Penn State to that next level. But the interesting thing is we kind of spit out a few of the numbers in the story, and there's some potential to haul in some real dough here. I mean, we're talking about Penn State as a school that's got the largest alumni network in the nation, like 750,000 people. And Mark Toniani said that his starting goal was for 40,000 donors, and that seems like a pretty attainable goal. And if you add it to the numbers of the monthly subscriptions that they're getting, there's some serious money going around in this whole situation.
Right. It's super exciting to think about too, because they've already brought in 400 since March. This has only been a thing since March, really,
Yeah.
off and
Mhm.
running. They've already paid out 37 athletes across 23 Penn State sports, and there are only 31 Penn State sports. So, I mean,
Mhm.
that's covering a lot of ground right there. What they want to get across is that this isn't just a football and basketball thing. Like, this is
Mhm.
every Penn State sport. Um, Good question, though. If the football program needs, let's pull out a number. Ryan Day said 13 million. James Franklin seems to agree with that number, may want more. If the football program needs that much, how are you going to pay other programs? The answer is if they can reach their goal of 40,000 subscriptions on their on the collective,
Mhm.
40,000, and you put that in a range of $10 to $500 a month,
Yeah.
you know, that number could be crazy. Let's say we take the average of 10 and 500, 255,
Mhm.
you know, that could translate to $122 million in a year,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
would fund the football program $20 million and then over $3 million to all other Penn State sports, all 30 Penn State sports.
Yeah.
So I mean, not everyone's gonna put in $255 a month.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
everyone has that money, but like in theory, if they do get 40,000 to donate some amount of money every single month from $10 to
Yep.
$500,
Mhm.
I mean, the sky's really the limit for how much Penn State could raise based off this collective.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's pretty impressive. And I mean, 40,000 seems like a big number, but again, we're talking about 700,000 alumni plus,
Right.
and there's 100,000 people in Beaver Stadium every week. So it really doesn't seem that unrealistic, and it could be doing some pretty crazy things for Penn State athletics. And I think the other thing that's interesting is the idea of NIL lately has been kind of just, well, let's just hand this recruit a bunch of money while they're on campus, but and just like you said, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but at least taking Tony Audie's word for what it is, like that's not what Success with Honor is wanting to do. And so it's interesting. I mean, we had the whole ordeal with Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban a couple of months ago. That was pretty interesting. And so who knows? This whole landscape is really just like it changes every day, and we can't really fully grasp what's going on, but it seems like Penn State's doing the right things in with Success with Honor, and Success with Honor is kind of really helping Penn State make, at least for now, the next step in athletics.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us, guys. Thanks for watching. 1-0 podcast. Keep up with us at collegian.psu.edu and on Twitter. 2 accounts now. PSU Footblog for the main stuff and podcast stuff. Go follow us. 1-0 pod on Twitter. Check it out. Peace.